Okay, so a lot of times when I'm on the air, I think about this, Howie. I think about what if the athlete was sitting in my chair? So when Baker Mayfield came on, I gave him crap like I would, right? And I like Tua.
Yeah.
I like Tua. I really think he's a good kid.
Who doesn't?
But when I watch him with Herbert, Howie, come on. I mean, that's not even, they're not even the same. It's the same position. And I think it's coming back down to earth now as his team is beat up and they need him to carry him a little. And I just don't see it. Do you?
Well, I don't think it's a fair comparison. With Herbert, I think I said it in year one when he hit the field. He's a generational talent, and trust what you see. And he's a 4.1 GPA. He's a tough guy. We saw that earlier in the year in Kansas City, and staying in the game and making a big throw late in the game give them an opportunity to win. They've had their issues at receiver with injuries and offensive line, and he says all the right things. He's 6'5", 240, 35, great athlete. I just don't think Tua. It's fair to Tua to make that. And I heard the comparisons last week, and I don't think they're fair. I think Tua, and I think he made a really a bold statement earlier in the year. I think he said Tua throws the most catchable ball in football. I believe, yes, when he's in rhythm, when he's healthy, when the receiving core is healthy and on. And I think that high-low hit he took and the hammering he took last week versus San Francisco certainly impacted him physically and maybe somewhat emotionally. Those things happen. If I hit you with a hammer enough times, as no matter how tough you are, you're going to blink inevitably.
So it's interesting. The Niners are really an old school team. Even their offensive players play like defensive players. Kittle, McCaffrey. These guys run through walls. They don't even look like most of the league. They initiate contact. Everybody else is running out of bounds or sliding. And so here's this Brock Purdy kid who Alabama brought him for a visit. Saban didn't even know his name, reportedly. He goes to Iowa State, gets the you-know-what kicked out of him for a couple years. And I say to myself, he actually fits. In that locker room, he's a kid that has been kicked to the curb and overlooked, played with Iowa State guys against Texas, Oklahoma guys. I think Brock Purdy can win you playoff games. I do. I think he fits for this moment. Your thoughts on what you see?
I think Brock Purdy can win you playoff games with this football team. And, how healthy is Debo? What's that injury like and how many weeks is that? And injuries with this team have always been, kind of the bugaboo. And, do they when they're healthy and they're on, I think, you look at this defense, you look at the design of the offense, the skilled players, the kind of physicality they play with, the sustained intensity that they play with on defense, Warner and Bosa and, that whole group, and they just fly to the ball. This kid, you talk about the intangibles. He has that. One, you talk about a visit to Alabama. He doesn't fit the measurables.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't get past that. But I think the Niners knew what they had. I think they knew what they had early in training camp, and I think they planned on him being their third-team quarterback. Now, that got accelerated, and he stepped in and played well last week. And you say, well, okay, they get some film on him, and that's, the kind of the plays that he made yesterday. One, he goes on that bootleg and, puts the brakes on, stops, has the presence to keep his eyes downfield. He makes the throw. And then he throws that pick that's overturned because of a penalty and goes right back at it.
Yep.
Number one, Kyle Shanahan makes the call. Two, he makes the play, and the throw to McCaffrey was a dime versus pressure, and he knew he was going to get hit.
Yeah.
He really has played well, and I think he's won his football team over, and that's the key. When you get in the huddle, do they believe? And I think they believe they can win with him.
I was saying this to Jason earlier. I've seen this in college basketball through the years. If you don't get challenged in the regular season, you get into sudden death March Madness, and all of a sudden you get into a tight game, and you're the favorite, and it gets tight fast. And, last year the Rams in that division, they were in close games every week. And the Super Bowl was close. And the Brady game was close at the end. So they're ready for it. Philadelphia is an avalanche. They're not even in close games. And go back to your career. Part of me thinks, okay, the margins shrink when you get to the postseason. Go back to your entire career. Was there a team that steamrolled people? I mean, this is like college. And they got into the playoffs, and it gets a little tight, Howie. They haven't been in a lot of close games.
Well, I think styles make fights, and I think your analogy of March Madness is appropriate because our format of playoffs, and I think it's one of the reasons why our game is so successful, it's single game elimination. It really doesn't, you have to be great on that one day. And if you've been great the entire season and suddenly you take a step back, hey, listen, this. I mean, in '83, we lost to Seattle twice that year.
Yeah.
And we played them in the AFC Championship game in LA in front of 102,000 people there and smoked them and end up advancing to play a Washington team that had set a record for scoring and looked like a juggernaut on film. And we had lost to them earlier in the year on a screen pass, backed up 2nd and 7. I think Joe Washington screen pass, fast forward to the Super Bowl. We substitute Matt Millen, who's 260-pound, 1-2 down kind of linebacker for Jack Squirek, and no one even knows Jack Squirek. He's spying Joe Washington. Jet rip blue slash. Joe Theismann is pressured, throws it up. Jack Squirek intercepts it in for the touchdown, and the game's over.
Yeah. All right, Howie. Your kids are doing great. You're doing great. This is the fun time of the season.
Sure is.
It really is. Now these quarterbacks, they don't have all their starters. They're missing tackles. They're missing receivers. And it really is a separator now. The great ones, the Burrows, the Allens, the Herberts, they start separating. But, before we go on Tom Brady, my guess is he would probably at this point, listen, if San Francisco called, you take it. But I do think San Francisco put so much draft capital into Trey Lance, and I think they like Purdy. I think they're going to take those two kids into camp and roll with it. That's my gut feeling. Tom's going to be 46. I don't think San Francisco goes with Tom, but I can see them being interested and Tom being interested. If I said, your guess today, would he be a Niner next year?
I think if he had the opportunity to be a Niner, when you think about it, Tampa Bay, he picked Tampa Bay.
Right.
Tampa Bay, and he chose wisely. And Tampa Bay was loaded, offensive line, receiver position, great defense, offensive-minded coach. And I think you can see similarities to that in San Francisco. And certainly I think it's a hometown team. He grew up watching that team and kind of idolizing Joe Montana and that whole group that won all those Super Bowls. That being said, I'm not sure from an organizational standpoint, as you mentioned, with the pieces they have and the commitment they have to their number one pick, who they spent a lot of draft capital on, and Purdy now has kind of, I think, given them reason to pause on how they view the position.
Right.
And what do they do with Jimmy Garoppolo? So there's a lot to factor in there. I give Tom credit. This is it's tough to watch. There's the horses are out of the barn, and Tom's kind of trying to will it to happen, and that certainly didn't happen yesterday.
Howie Long, great seeing you, Howie. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.